Hi everyone, welcome to Firms Consulting channel. So today we're going to talk about something very important. We're going to talk about how can you motivate yourself. And this is something that we talked about for many years on firmsconsulting.com, but what I'm going to teach you today is not something that you can easily find anywhere else. So I think you will really enjoy this video. You probably noticed that there's a disconnect between the manner in which people go after changing their careers and achieving great results and how they could do it most effectively and efficiently. And while most people do realize that they can improve their performance, most of them don't have any rational basis of which to challenge themselves, how to motivate themselves to take action most effectively. We mistakenly assume that we are motivated by inspiring positive stories and constantly fail to get that promotion, to get the results we want to get, even though we are so inspired by some positive story. How do we overcome this inability to get results despite being so motivated? The solution? The understanding that you can motivate yourself with the aspirational or deficit model based on how you are hardwired. The important part is to figure out which model is right for you. What we are going to discuss is not unusual. It is grounded in management theory. Enter Robert Solow, the 1987 Nobel laureate, for his contributions to the theory of economic growth. Solow's work showed that globalization not only allows countries to exploit comparative advantage, but also inspires companies to fight for their place under the sun. When companies are exposed to a serious global competitor, the fear of being put out of business or losing their market share is often that final push that spurs them to action. In other words, fear is a phenomenal motivator. This is a vitally important observation. Think of the American space race. When US competed with Soviet Union, the Soviets beat the US with 1957 success of Sputnik 1, and later again in 1961 by sending the first human to space, Yuri Gagarin. And that fear that Soviet Union will overtake them forced the Americans to respond. Would motivational and feel-good speech from the president have generated the same result? Yes, the soaring rhetoric came later from John Kennedy about how we are going to put a man on the moon. But the trigger was that fear of being left behind. And the response was motivation. One thing that you will learn quite fast is that you and everyone else belong in one of two categories. You are either someone who is predominantly motivated by fear of failure or someone who is primarily motivated by the possibility of success. And you have to figure out what is your point of motivation. And when I say fear of failure, I don't mean that to motivate somebody who is pushed into action by a fright, you need to exaggerate the possibility of the looming failure that they are facing. But you need to describe the potential failure they are facing if action is not taken. In consulting, we call being motivated by the possibility of success an aspirational model, and being motivated by the possibility of failure a deficit model. So the aspirational model is where we point out the possibilities of success and benefits of taking action to motivate clients. And the deficit model is one where we will point out a threat and the consequences of failure to motivate clients to take action. In Firms Consulting, we are particularly careful about distinguishing what triggers client to take action. If clients are motivated by fear of failure, we use the deficit training model. We carefully but consistently weave in the results of other clients and bring in the challenges that this particular client will likely face. If the client is primarily motivated by the possibility of success, we use the aspirational training model. In the aspirational model, we always focus on the positives and are very careful about critiquing any weaknesses. We point them out, but we do not overanalyze them. And the results we get from each type of training are roughly the same. But it comes down to our ability to figure out which model is most appropriate for this particular client. And you have to figure out which model is right for you. Authors of almost all management books today or books about how to change your life try to inspire you. They try to motivate you by getting you to see the bright future. Authors of those books often imply or outright state that by being inspired, you will take action and will change your life and millions of dollars and make a significant impact in the world. We work with many clients around the world, and what I've noticed is that many clients believe that all they need is to be inspired and then they will be able to take action. They think, inspire me and they will do well. Yet this is not true for many people. There are some clients, in fact many clients, who are much more motivated by fear of failure. This is where disconnect comes in. People who are primarily motivated by fear of failure read inspirational books trying to push themselves to take action. Yet it is not helping them in the least, because the trigger that they need to take action is actually a fear of failure, not the possibility of success. As Solo's work shows, a fear of failure is an enormous motivator for many people. In fact, it is probably more of a trigger than inspirational stories for most people. So why have inspirational stories grown? Because people want to feel good. Even people who are motivated by fear of failure also want to feel good. They wish they could change their lives by feeling good, and they end up buying those books. But reading inspirational books trying to motivate yourself when you are predominantly triggered into action by fear of failure is usually wasteful. You can't easily change what motivates you. You can try, but most likely it will not work. When you're thinking about how to make changes in your career, think carefully whether you are one of those people who needs a trigger of possibility of success to spur you to take action, or a fear of failure to get you moving. Acquiring this knowledge requires you to undertake a diagnostic that reveals what made you take action in the past. If you are usually triggered to take action by the possibility of success, to get motivated you need to hear inspiring speeches, read inspirational books, talk to people that inspire you, meet role models, and consider what will happen when you reach your targets. And if you are triggered into taking action by fear of failure, then to get motivated you need to consider the possibility of failure and corresponding consequences. And here is an interesting fact. If you are somebody who is primarily motivated by a fear of failure, then no amount of inspirational stories and feel-good speeches is going to push you to move. You may be motivated only when you are staring crisis in the face. Yet unfortunately it is not a good idea to manufacture crisis all the time. Instead, learn to position or interpret things from the position of what could go wrong. When you need to nudge yourself into taking action, start by asking, what could go wrong and am I prepared to live with the consequences? If the answer is not a lot can go wrong and I can live with the consequences, then there is no fear to fail. You will not do anything about the situation, which is not a problem because you do not need to do anything about it. And if you are somebody who is primarily motivated by the possibility of success and need to motivate yourself to take action, start by asking, what is possible out of this? And why do I want what is possible out of this? One is looking at the downside and the other is looking at the upside. But the key thing here is, if you're somebody who is motivated by a fear of failure, you're not going to take action if you're only looking at the upside. If you're somebody who responds to the possibility of failure, you need to consistently put yourself in situations where you are being challenged. On the other hand, people who are driven by the possibility of success usually do not need to be challenged because they already challenge themselves. They set targets and they move towards it. I would say most people are motivated by fear of failure. That is why they take action only when things are about to go wrong. Yet over time, as they become more successful, and because they do not realize that they are motivated by fear of failure, they start looking for aspirational leadership and their success rate drops. In fact, they can end up failing, their careers break down. They usually wonder why they are not successful when the trigger is the issue. Gaining more inspiration is not the answer. That is why it is so important to know what triggers your motivation. If you are motivated by fear of failure, understand the way you need to analyze situations. This way you can be proactive as opposed to wait for things to break down to trigger your need to change. If you acknowledge that you are motivated by fear of failure, you need to be able to analyze and predict. Things are going to break down. It's not going to work in 1 month or 6 months or a year or even 2 years. So let me respond now. If you do not forecast ahead, you will end up only becoming motivated enough to respond when things are really bad. This is the danger of those motivated by fear of failure. The fear may only arrive when or even after the failure has arrived, and that may be too late. And the sad thing is that most people do not realize that they are motivated by fear of failure, and they end up doing all the wrong things to get themselves motivated. So the key is knowing what motivates you, and I think that most people primarily motivated by fear of failure. So most likely you are primarily motivated by a fear of failure. And think about, what does that mean? What power does it give you now that you know about it? And what things you need to be doing differently to motivate yourself? I would say I am predominantly motivated by fear of failure. And in fact, most people who go into management consulting are primarily motivated by fear of failure. Think about it. Why do we end up working so hard in high school, making sacrifices to get into a well-regarded university and score good grades? Because we do not want to be left behind. But what happens is, once we become relatively successful, we forget that what allowed us to get this far is being motivated by fear of failure. We say, you know what, I need to change, I need to become more positive, I need to inspire myself to take action. But you cannot inspire yourself to take action if you are predominantly motivated by fear of failure. And you also cannot be particularly positive while being motivated by fear of failure. And it doesn't mean you're a somber person who looks like they're going to a funeral every day. Optimistic people can be motivated by fear of failure. A fear of failure is what your fear is. It's not what your personality is. You can be a cheerful person, just wonderful to be around, yet be driven by fear of failure. Therefore, you cannot determine if someone is driven by fear of failure based on their personality or even based on how difficult their life was in the past. However, the circumstances of one's life does influence how a person is motivated. If, for example, you grew up in a challenging environment, you lost a lot of things, your father went bankrupt, you are more likely to be hardwired to never want to experience those things again. And when you see any possibility that that can happen, you immediately react to this. And sometimes when you had a lot of failure throughout your entire life, you just don't want that in your life at all. So you are extra careful at avoiding any failure because you know how low you can fall. So know what drives you. You need to know what type of analysis you require when you need to push yourself to take action. Some of our clients realize that they are motivated by fear of failure, but they think it is a bad thing. Because every book says you have got to motivate people. And we are culturally wired to equate motivation with being positive. But some people get motivated by fear of failure, and some people get motivated by a promise of success. At its core, motivation is about getting people to take action. We equate the word motivate with something positive, yet it is not always positive. It is also important to remember that not everyone can be easily motivated. Some people have limitations. So no matter how much you inspire them or point out a looming failure to them, they just do not take action. But you can always be a lot better than you are right now. And this person who has limitations may be you. I hope not, but it may be you. But even if that is the case, you need to remember that everyone can improve. You can always be a lot better than you are right now. You may not necessarily get to the highest level of performance fast enough, but you don't have to get to the highest level of performance. You have to keep improving. Focus on your progress. There is a band of achievement. Focus on being within that band and keep on improving. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really loved spending this time with you. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe, press on the bell so you know when we post new videos. And post a comment, let me know what you liked in this video, what kind of future videos you would like us to post. and I would love to read your comments. I would love to get to know you, where you are from, and what is on your mind, whether you found this video helpful, and what other videos you would like to see. And before I forget, if you are not receiving emails from us with amazing content, go to firmsconsulting.com, FIRMS consulting.com, and opt in at the top of the page, put in your name and your email address, and we are going to send you some amazing free episodes from our advanced strategy and other training programs. And we are going to send you updates every week, and you are going to be on top of what is going on and what new resources we are releasing. I hope you will have a fantastic week, and I'm looking forward to see you next time.